Hello. For the next hour or so, we're going to look at some of the hidden patterns of human influence. Not just the theories, but the specific ways these patterns can be used, the predictable and often unseen architecture of how we persuade each other. And as we go, you'll probably start to recognize these mechanisms. You might see times they've been used on you, or perhaps even times you've used them yourself, without even knowing it. There's nothing to solve here, just some ideas to observe. This is simply a look at these mechanisms and how they work. The first, and perhaps the most powerful mechanism, is one you've definitely felt. It's that uncomfortable, almost physical pressure you feel when someone gives you something, even if you didn't ask for it. A coworker buys you a coffee. A neighbor does you a small favor you didn't need. Immediately, you feel this imbalance. This is the weight of the gift. It's the mechanism of reciprocity. In a healthy sense, it's the glue that holds society together. It's the ancient, unspoken rule that we must repay what we are given. It's why we help friends move and why we trade favors. But what we're observing here is how that healthy social rule can be weaponized. The key is the unsolicited part. When a gift is given that you did not ask for, you are placed into a social contract you never agreed to. That person who bought you the coffee now has a small, invisible hold on you. The next time they ask you to stay late or to cover a shift, you'll feel this internal pressure to say yes. To say no would feel wrong, ungrateful. You would feel like a bad person. The mind doesn't like this feeling of imbalance, this open loop. It wants to close the loop to rebalance the equation, and here is the critical part. The mind is very bad at math in these situations. It will often overpay the debt just to get rid of the uncomfortable feeling of obligation. That $1 coffee can easily be traded for an hour of your time or your agreement on a project. The person who gave the gift has set the terms. They started the transaction, and you are now compelled to finish it. You see this in the real world all the time. The free sample at a store is a perfect example. It is not a gift, it is a transaction. By accepting the free sample, you have accepted a small gift, and you now feel obligated to stand there for 5 minutes and listen to the sales pitch. You feel rude just walking away. Or think of the free flower given at an airport, followed immediately by a request for a donation. The mechanism is designed to make it psychologically painful to refuse. It's a way of making someone feel like they owe you simply by giving them something they may not have even wanted in the first place. This idea of creating an internal imbalance is a theme. It's a way of creating pressure that the person has to resolve themselves. Here's another, more subtle way this is done. It's the principle of small commitments. This is not about giving a gift. This is about getting something. Specifically, it's about getting someone to agree to one tiny, insignificant thing. Something so small, so reasonable, it's almost impossible to say no to. Because that first small yes does something powerful. It doesn't just get you to agree, it starts to shift how you see yourself. Let's say someone wants to convince you of a big, complex idea or sell you an expensive product. They won't start there. They'll start by getting you to agree to a tiny, related premise. A simple question. Wouldn't you agree that protecting your family is important? Well, yes, of course. That's an easy yes. Then, a day later, another small, reasonable question, and you'd agree that it's always smart to be prepared, right? Another easy yes. Each yes is a small stone being laid on a path. Your mind, in its powerful desire to be consistent, will start to follow that path. That need to stay consistent with your past self is a deeply rooted force. We all want to be and be seen as consistent people. We hate the feeling of cognitive dissonance. that feeling when our actions don't match our beliefs. This mechanism manufactures a new belief by asking for a tiny, undeniable action. The most famous study of this is the billboard study. Researchers went door to door in a neighborhood with an absurd request. Will you put this giant, ugly, drive carefully billboard on your front lawn? As you'd expect, almost everyone said no. But with a different group of homeowners, they tried something else first. 2 weeks earlier, they went by and asked them to put a tiny 3-inch square sign in their window that said, "Be a safe driver." It was a tiny request. Most people said yes. Then the researchers came back with the real request, the giant, ugly billboard. And in this group, a huge number of people agreed. Why? Because 2 weeks earlier, they had made a small commitment. They had, in their own minds, relabeled themselves as, "I am a good, civic-minded person who supports safe driving." When the second, larger request came, it wasn't just a question about a billboard. It was a test of their new identity. To say no would create a painful internal conflict. It would mean, I am not a good, civic-minded person. I am a hypocrite. To avoid that psychological pain, they said yes to the absurd request. This is the path of breadcrumbs. Each yes is a breadcrumb you willingly pick up, and by the time you're deep in the woods, you realize you've been following their path, not your own, all because you were just trying to be consistent with the person you were a few minutes ago. So, how do these mechanisms even get started? What makes that first yes possible? What makes us accept the gift? This is where an even quieter and perhaps more fundamental mechanism comes in. The power of priming. This is the process of suggestion. Priming doesn't force you to do anything. It doesn't create a debt or a commitment. It just makes a path easier to walk. It's the architecture of association. It's about planting an idea, a word, or a feeling in someone's mind so that when the time comes, their brain finds that idea and thinks it was its own. The classic study here is one where people who simply held a warm beverage for a moment, just a warm cup, were then far more likely to describe a totally random person as being warmer, kinder, and more generous. Those who held a cold beverage described the same person as colder and more selfish. The physical feeling, warm, primed the abstract concept, warmth. It made all of those related ideas more accessible, closer to the surface of their mind. It laid a non-conscious track. They didn't know why they felt the person was warm, they just did. This is happening constantly. It's the environment we're in. When a salesperson is trying to sell you a security system, they will use words like safety, family, protection, and peace of mind over and over. They are priming you to feel the emotion of insecurity so that their product feels like the solution to that feeling. It's the music in a store, it's the colors on a website, it's the subtle use of language. If I want to make you feel like you're missing out, I won't say, "You are missing out." I'll just use words like limited, exclusive, and everyone. Your own mind will do the rest of the work, creating that feeling of scarcity all on its own. This is the most unseen of the mechanisms because it happens before the request. You can't defend against it because you don't even know it's happening. It's not an argument, so you can't argue back. It's just an association, a whisper. It's the act of controlling the mental environment to make a desired idea feel like it was your own. Now, you can see how these stack together. You can prime someone with words and ideas that make them feel agreeable and warm. This makes it easier to get that first small commitment, that first tiny yes. That commitment, in turn, starts to shift their self-identity. And then a well-timed gift can be used to create that sense of obligation to seal the deal and get the final big yes. These aren't 3 separate ideas, they're 3 layers of a single system. And this is just at the individual level. It gets much more complex when we start to look at how we behave in groups. That's really the next layer to this. The mechanisms we've looked at so far, like reciprocity and commitment, are mostly one-on-one. But the pressure to conform, the pressure from a group, can be an even more powerful force. We all feel it. It's a deep, ancient survival instinct. When we're uncertain, we don't look inward. We look outward. We look at what everyone else is doing. This is our first group mechanism. We can call it the pull of the crowd. This is, at its core, the mechanism of social proof. It's a mental shortcut. Our brain assumes that if a lot of people are doing something, it must be the right, or at least the safe, thing to do. You use this mechanism every day, even when you don't realize it. Let's say you're on a new street looking for a place to eat. You see two restaurants. One is completely empty, and the other has a line out the door. Which one do you instantly, without thinking, assume is better? The one with the line? You've used the crowd as a signal for quality. And because this is such a powerful, automatic shortcut, it's one of the most common mechanisms used in persuasion. When you see a product that has thousands of 5-star reviews, you're seeing social proof. Your brain translates that to thousands of people tried this and liked it, so my risk is low. But this can be manufactured. It's the old trick of a new nightclub paying actors to stand in line outside. They are creating the illusion of popularity. That illusion of a crowd creates a real crowd. People see the line, assume the place is in high demand, and want to join it. Social proof becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This mechanism also has a deeply unsettling side. It's not just about what we do. It's about what we don't do. This is the bystander effect. When someone is in trouble in a public place, the common sad observation is that the larger the crowd, the less likely anyone is to help. Why? It's social proof in action. Each person in that crowd is uncertain. They look around for cues on how to behave, and what do they see? They see everyone else doing nothing. So, the brain concludes that nothing is the correct and socially acceptable response. The pull of the crowd, in this case, is a pull towards inaction. Everyone is waiting for someone else to act, and as a result, no one does. So, this group pressure is a powerful force. Now, how do you make it even more powerful? You add time pressure, you add the fear of loss. This brings us to our next mechanism, the closing window. This is the mechanism of scarcity. Our minds are wired to believe that things that are rare or hard to get are more valuable. But it's more than that. It's not just that we want the rare thing. It's that we are terrified of losing our freedom to choose. You've felt this. It's the simple phrase, limited time only, or only 3 left in stock, or this sale ends Friday. As soon as you hear that, what happens? You feel a new, sudden sense of urgency. You might not have even wanted the item 2 minutes ago, but now you're suddenly afraid of losing the chance to have it. The focus of your mind shifts. It's no longer, do I want this? It becomes, I will lose this forever if I don't act now. We are motivated far more by the fear of losing something than by the prospect of gaining something of equal value. That fear of missing out, the potential for regret, is a powerful motivator. When a choice is abundant, we can take our time. We can use our rational, logical mind. But when a choice is scarce, our emotional, reactive mind takes over. It's a survival instinct. In our evolutionary past, a scarce resource, like food or water, was a life or death emergency. Now let's stack this. Imagine what happens when you combine the pull of the crowd with the closing window. This is the classic high-pressure sales environment. Everyone is signing up for this program, and there are only 2 spots left. Let's break that down. Everyone is signing up is the social proof. It manufactures consensus. It makes you feel like you're the only one not doing it. It makes you question your own judgment. And there are only two spots left, is the scarcity. It's the closing window. It's the time pressure. That combination is incredibly potent. It's designed to create a potent emotional mix of social anxiety and personal urgency. It's built to force a quick emotional decision, intentionally bypassing the logical, rational part of your mind. So, we've seen group pressure and we've seen time pressure. But what about when it's just two people? How do you create that feeling of being in a group when it's just one-on-one? This is where we see a more subtle interpersonal mechanism, the unconscious echo. This is the mechanism of mirroring. On a non-conscious level, we all do this. When we feel in sync with someone, when we like them and trust them, we will unconsciously begin to copy them. We'll adopt their posture. We'll cross our legs when they do. We'll pick up our drink at the same time. We might even start to match their breathing rhythm or their rate of speech. You can see this happen in real time at any cafe. Just watch two old friends who are deep in conversation. Their postures will be almost identical. It's a natural, unconscious dance. It's a non-verbal way of saying, I am like you, I understand you, we are part of the same tribe. But just like all these other mechanisms, this natural process can be done consciously. If you intentionally mirror someone, you can create a feeling of rapport and trust that wasn't there to begin with. You can consciously sit the way they're sitting. You can pace your speech to match theirs. You can use some of the same common words they use. The other person will not consciously notice this. If they did, it would be strange. But on a deep subconscious level, their brain is picking up all these tiny signals, and their brain is saying, this person is like me. This person is familiar. This person is safe. This is often used to lower a person's natural defenses. It's a way of bypassing the critical, analytical part of their brain that might see you as an outsider and instead appealing directly to the ancient, tribal part of their brain that's just looking for one of us. It's a way of manufacturing trust. This isn't just about copying either, it's about leading. Once you've established this mirrored rapport for a few minutes, you can test it. You can shift your own posture, and you'll find that in many cases, they will now unconsciously follow you. You've used this mechanism to become the leader of this tiny two-person group. So we have these tools. We can create urgency with a closing window. We can manufacture consensus with the pull of the crowd. And we can build artificial trust with an unconscious echo. This all relies on a shared, basic understanding of reality. But what happens when that's the very thing being manipulated? What happens when these tools are used not just to influence your perception of a product, but to influence your perception of yourself and even your own memory? That's really the next layer to this. The mechanisms we've looked at so far are mostly one-on-one, but the pressure from a group can be an even more powerful force. We all feel it, as it's a deep, ancient survival instinct. When we're uncertain, we don't look inward. We look outward, observing what everyone else is doing, and this is our first group mechanism. We can call it the pull of the crowd. This is, at its core, the mechanism of social proof. It's a mental shortcut where our brain assumes that if a lot of people are doing something, it must be the right, or at least the safe, thing to do. You see two restaurants, one empty, one with a line. You instantly assume the one with the line is better. This is why thousands of 5-star reviews work, but this can also be manufactured. A new club can pay actors to stand in line to create the illusion of popularity, and that illusion creates a real crowd. This mechanism also has a deeply unsettling side, the bystander effect. When someone is in trouble, the larger the crowd, the less likely anyone is to help. This is because everyone is uncertain, and when they look around, they see no one else acting. Their brain concludes that doing nothing is the correct social response, creating a pull towards inaction. This isn't just about inaction, it's about actively agreeing with a falsehood. The classic Asch conformity experiments showed this perfectly. A subject was put in a room with a group of actors and asked to perform a simple visual test. The actors would, on purpose, all give the same, obviously wrong answer. The pressure was so intense that the real subject, battling the evidence of their own eyes, would often conform to the group's wrong answer. They did this just to avoid the discomfort of being the lone outlier. So, this group pressure is a powerful force. How do you make it even stronger? You add time pressure and you add the fear of loss. This brings us to our next mechanism, the closing window. This is the mechanism of scarcity. Our minds are wired to believe that things that are rare are more valuable, but it's more than that. We are terrified of losing our freedom to choose. You've felt this. It's the simple phrase, limited time only, or only 3 left in stock. Suddenly, you feel an urgency. You might not have even wanted the item 2 minutes ago, but now you're afraid of losing the chance to have it. We are motivated far more by the fear of losing something than by the prospect of gaining something. That fear bypasses our rational mind and triggers an emotional, reactive one. It's a manufactured emergency. Now, let's stack this. Imagine what happens when you combine the pull of the crowd with the closing window. This is the high-pressure sales tactic. Everyone is signing up for this program, and there are only 2 spots left. Everyone is signing up is the social proof, making you feel left behind. Only 2 spots left is the scarcity, the time pressure. That combination is built to force a quick, emotional decision, intentionally bypassing your logic. So, we've seen group pressure and time pressure. But what about when it's just 2 people? How do you create that group feeling one-on-one? This brings us to the unconscious echo. This is the mechanism of mirroring. On a non-conscious level, we all do this. When we feel in sync with someone, we unconsciously copy them, adopting their posture and matching their pacing. It's a natural, non-verbal way of saying, I am like you, we are part of the same tribe. But this natural process can be done consciously. If you intentionally mirror someone, you can create a feeling of rapport and trust that wasn't there. You can consciously sit the way they're sitting. The other person won't consciously notice, but on a deep subconscious level, their brain is picking up these signals. It's saying, this person is like me. This person is familiar. This person is safe. It's a way of manufacturing trust, lowering their natural defenses, and bypassing the critical, analytical part of their brain. This all relies on a shared, basic understanding of reality. But what happens when that's the very thing being manipulated? What happens when these tools are used not just to influence your perception of a product, but to influence your perception of yourself? This is where we move into the most unsettling mechanisms. This is the architecture of controlling the narrative. We have to start with a fundamental truth. Your memory is not a video recorder. Every time you remember something, you are not playing a file. You are rebuilding the event from scratch. This softness of our memory is what allows for our next mechanism, the malleability of memory. Because memory feels so real, we trust it, but it's shockingly easy to implant a false memory. The Lost in the Mall study proved this. Researchers, with the help of family members, convinced subjects they'd had a detailed emotional experience of being lost in a mall as a child. It never happened, but by mixing real details with the false story, they were able to implant a memory that felt 100% real to the person. The reason this worked so well wasn't just the suggestion, it was the source of the suggestion. The false information was laundered through a trusted authority, their own family. When a person you trust completely, a person who built your early reality, tells you something happened, it's almost impossible to reject. Your brain's logic says they would have no reason to lie about this, so the new information is accepted, and the mind dutifully weaves it into its own narrative. Now, let's look at this as a mechanism. This is the tool used to make someone doubt their own reality. This isn't about a shopping mall. It's about a fight you had last week. A manipulator won't just say, "That didn't happen. That's too aggressive." Instead, they'll say, "No, I never said that. I think you're misremembering." Or, "That's not what happened. You were being really emotional. I think you're just being too sensitive." If you hear this once, you'll fight it. But if you hear it every day for a year, you'll start to doubt. You'll think, well, maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe I am misremembering. You'll start to build a new narrative, one where you are the unreliable one. The ultimate goal is to make the other person stop trusting their own mind. This is often supported by a much simpler, quieter tool. This is the weight of the pause. We call this strategic silence. In a normal conversation, silence is just a space to breathe. But in an emotional conversation, silence becomes a pressure. It becomes a void. You've felt this, the awkward silence. It's awkward because no one is in control, and we feel a deep subconscious urge to fix it. In a manipulation, the person who fills the silence loses. Here is how it's used. A manipulator will ask a loaded question. You'll answer, you'll defend yourself. And then they'll just look at you. They won't say anything. That silence is loud, it's full of judgment. Your mind starts to race. Did I say the wrong thing? They must not believe me. I need to explain myself better. And so you do. You start talking again. You get nervous, you ramble, you reveal an insecurity, all because you were so desperate to fill that terrifying, pressurized void. They make you do all the work, and then they use your own words against you. This leads us to the final mechanism. This is the one our own brain does that makes all of this so much easier. This is the cognitive shortcut. We call this, more formally, confirmation bias. Your brain is not a scientific instrument. It's not interested in objective truth. Your brain is an efficiency machine. It wants to get to a conclusion as fast as possible. The fastest way to do that is to cheat. Once your brain has a belief, even a tiny one, it will actively search for any evidence that supports that belief. And it will actively ignore, discount, or twist any evidence that contradicts it. You buy a new red car, and suddenly you see red cars everywhere. Your brain has a new search filter. This shortcut is especially dark when we apply it to people. Once we have decided someone is, for example, selfish, our brain creates a filter. We will then only see their selfish acts. If they do something nice, our brain will twist it, saying, they just did that because they want something. We stop seeing the actual person, and we only see the label we created, making it almost impossible for them to change our mind. This is fine for cars, but it's dangerous when it's about yourself. Now, let's stack all three mechanisms from this part. Let's build the entire system for controlling a narrative. It starts with the malleability of memory. The manipulator plants a seed of doubt. You sure you remember that, right? I think you were just tired. Just a tiny seed. Then they use the weight of the pause. You say, "No, I'm sure it happened." And they just look at you. That long, silent, disappointed stare, the pressure builds. You start to feel uncertain. Now, the cognitive shortcut takes over. That seed of doubt, maybe I am wrong, is now a new belief, and your own brain, in its desire to be efficient, will start searching for evidence to support this new belief. Your brain will think, well, I was tired that day, and I did forget my keys last week. Maybe I am unreliable. Your own mind, in an attempt to resolve the conflict, will start to help the manipulator. You will build the case against yourself from the inside. This entire system, this architecture of false narrative, is often just the foundation. It's the groundwork, because once you can control a person's past and their present, you can then build on that foundation to create even larger, more complex systems of persuasion. That entire system, the architecture of a false narrative, is often just the groundwork. It's the foundation for controlling a person's past and their present. But once that's in place, it can be used to build even larger, more complex systems of persuasion. This is where all the individual mechanisms we've observed are stacked together. They are combined into a single, overwhelming system designed to create a powerful, manufactured bond. This is the final layer of our observation. It's not about a single trick, but about the whole assembled architecture. This is when all the pieces are used at once. In a compressed, high-speed application, we can see how it's built. It starts with the unconscious echo, the mirroring we talked about. The manipulator will adopt the other person's exact mannerisms, their speech patterns, their humor, their hopes, and even their insecurities. They present themselves not as a new person, but as a perfect missing piece. They'll claim to love the same obscure music, or have the same unusual family background, or share the same secret fear. This creates a powerful and artificial feeling of rapport. It's a way of manufacturing a lifetime of knowing someone in a matter of days, making the connection feel like destiny rather than a set of calculated actions. This mirroring often creates a kind of secret language between the two. It's filled with inside jokes and shared references that are built in days, not years. This manufactured intimacy is incredibly potent. It makes the person feel that they have a unique private world with the manipulator, which makes the outside world, including friends and family, feel distant and foreign. This mechanism is also a classic pacing and leading technique. The manipulator first paces the person by matching them in every way. This builds the deep subconscious rapport. Then, once the connection is set, the manipulator leads. They can shift their own posture or their mood, and the other person will unconsciously follow, just to maintain that feeling of rapport. This establishes a subtle power dynamic where the manipulator is now in control, all without a single word being said. Then, on top of that manufactured trust, they add the weight of the gift. But it's not just a small gift, like a coffee. It's an overwhelming, non-stop gift of attention, of flattery, of compliments. It's constant praise, grand gestures, and future promises. It's a non-stop barrage of validation. This is a form of reciprocity, but on a massive scale. It makes the other person feel indebted, and it also makes them feel seen and understood in a way they never have before. This constant flood of positive reinforcement is intoxicating. It can be like a drug, targeting the same reward pathways in the brain. The person doesn't just enjoy the attention, they begin to crave it. This creates a powerful addiction to the feeling the manipulator provides. The manipulator is intentionally becoming the person's primary or even only source of this profound good feeling. This combination of intense mirrored rapport and overwhelming positive attention is a powerful system. We can give it a formal name. This is the rapid escalation of affect. This is the mechanism often used to create an instant, deep, and all-consuming bond. It's an intense, overwhelming campaign against a person's emotional defenses. The speed is the key. It's designed to rush the person past all of their natural logical checkpoints. There's no time to think, no time to question. It's just a flood of intense, positive emotion. This rapid escalation creates incredibly high stakes. When a connection feels so once in a lifetime, the person becomes terrified of losing it. They will be more willing to overlook small inconsistencies or red flags because the perceived value of the connection is so astronomically high. This fear of loss, which we saw in the closing window, is now being applied not to a product, but to a human relationship. The goal is to create a sort of bubble for the other person to live in. Inside this bubble, they are perfect, they are understood, they are safe. This intense, positive phase doesn't just feel good. It's also a powerful act of priming. It's priming the person to associate the manipulator with feelings of safety and adoration. This initial, perfect state becomes the anchor, the proof of the relationship's goodness, which the manipulator will refer back to later. Then, a new element is introduced, one we haven't discussed. We can call it the manufactured tribe. The manipulator will create a narrative of us versus the world. They will insist that no one understands the person like they do, that their family doesn't really appreciate them, or that their friends just don't see how special they are. This does two things. First, it isolates the person, slowly cutting them off from their support system. This makes the manipulator the only source of that good feeling, the only source of validation. Second, it uses social proof in reverse. The narrative is no longer that the crowd is right. The narrative becomes that the crowd is wrong and that we are the special, correct too. This makes the bond feel even more unique and precious. It makes them feel like partners against a cold, ununderstanding world. It turns any external criticism from friends or family into proof that the bond is special and that the outsiders are just jealous or ignorant. Once this bubble is built and the person is isolated and feels this intense manufactured connection, the system is complete. The manipulator can then slowly change. The intense, positive attention might be withdrawn, leaving the person desperate to get it back. This withdrawal is often unpredictable. This is a classic mechanism known as intermittent reinforcement because the affection and praise now come at random, unpredictable times. The person becomes obsessed, constantly trying to figure out what they did right to earn the reward. This is the same principle that makes slot machines so addictive. It's not the winning that hooks you. It's the unpredictability of the win. The person will now work twice as hard for the reward of affection, and the manipulator has to do half the work. They have created an addiction. This is where the malleability of memory is brought in. The manipulator will deny the intensity of the beginning, claiming they never said that, or that the person is being dramatic. The person, now isolated and full of doubt, will cling to their own memory of that perfect, primed feeling. They will be told, "I've always been this way. You're the one who is remembering it wrong." The person's own happy memories are now being used as a weapon against them, making them feel like they are the problem. At this stage, the person is in a state of deep cognitive dissonance. This is the painful mental conflict that happens when your beliefs don't match your reality. Their belief is that this person is their soulmate and loves them. Their reality is that this person is now treating them badly. To resolve this pain, the brain will do anything to make those two things fit. Instead of concluding that this person is a manipulator, which is too painful, the brain will conclude that they must be doing something to deserve this, that they must be the one who is flawed. The manipulator can then use this desperation, combined with the small commitments and malleable memory we've already observed, to guide the person's behavior. The person is now trapped not by force, but by a system they have been conditioned to need. They will do anything to get back to that initial, perfect feeling. The manipulator now has full control over the supply of that good feeling and can use it to reward or punish. The person is now working not for the relationship, but to get back to that first perfect high. So, as we've seen, this is an architecture. It's not magic. It's a predictable step-by-step process that starts with a simple gift and ends with a complete alternate reality for a single person. This entire system, this combination of manufactured trust, addiction, and narrative control, creates an almost unbreakable one-on-one bond. But this is still at the personal level. What happens when these same tools, the isolation, the us versus them tribe, the rewriting of memory, and the intermittent rewards, are scaled up? What happens when they aren't just used by a single person, but by an organization or a leader to control an entire group? This is where a final, powerful element is often introduced, one that can make all the others seem small by comparison. That final, powerful element, the one that allows these mechanisms to be scaled up to a group, is one we've been trained since birth to obey. It's the mechanism of the principle of authority. This is perhaps the most powerful mental shortcut we have. Our entire society is built on a reasonable, necessary structure of obedience. We obey parents, teachers, doctors, and law enforcement. This is a functional and healthy part of a complex society. We trust that their expertise and position are legitimate, so we follow their direction. But this shortcut is also a profound vulnerability. It's a deep, non-conscious program running in our minds. When a figure we perceive as a legitimate authority gives us a command, our own critical thinking, our own moral compass can be switched off. We stop thinking for ourselves and simply obey. The most unsettling proof of this comes from the famous Milgram experiments in the 1960s. The experiment was designed to see how far a normal person would go in obeying an authority figure, even when it meant harming someone else. In this experiment, a subject was told they were a teacher and that they had to administer an electric shock to a learner in another room every time the learner got a question wrong. The learner was just an actor, and the shocks were fake, but the teacher didn't know that. The person in charge was a scientist in a white lab coat who represented authority. As the learner got more questions wrong, the shocks got stronger, and the actor would begin to scream, complain of a heart condition, and eventually fall silent. When the teacher would hesitate, wanting to stop, the authority figure in the lab coat would simply say, in a calm, firm voice, that the experiment required that they continue or that they had no other choice. The results were shocking. A huge majority of ordinary, everyday people, despite being visibly distressed, kept going. They administered the highest, most dangerous levels of shock, all because a person in a lab coat told them to. They had outsourced their moral responsibility to the authority figure. So what then is authority? If it's so powerful, how is it created by those who don't deserve it? This is where a related mechanism comes in. This is because authority isn't just about a person, it's about the symbols of authority. We can call this the cloak of authority. These are the props, the costumes that trigger our obedience program. In the Milgram experiment, it was the lab coat. In other situations, it's a police uniform, an expensive suit, a fancy title like doctor or professor, or the trappings of power like a large office or a motorcade. These symbols are shortcuts for the shortcut. They tell our brain that this person is in charge before they've even said a word. A con artist doesn't earn your trust. They wear an expensive suit to signal that they are already successful and trustworthy. They manufacture authority using these symbols. Now, let's see how this all scales up, as we asked at the end of part 4. This is how a single, manipulative leader can control a whole group. The leader first establishes themselves as the ultimate authority. They are the one with the special knowledge, the one who has all the answers. They then use the manufactured tribe to create an us versus them mentality. The leader is the only one who can protect the group from the dangerous outside world. Once the group is isolated, the leader uses social proof against its own members. They will point to the most loyal followers as examples of true belief, which puts immense pressure on anyone who doubts. Then, the leader uses the malleability of memory to control the group's truth, changing the narrative of its own history to suit the leader's goals. And finally, the leader uses intermittent reinforcement, giving and withholding praise unpredictably, keeping the entire group in a desperate, addicted state, all trying to win back the leader's approval. So, as we've seen, this is an architecture. It's not magic. It's a predictable, step-by-step process. It starts with a simple gift. It moves to a small yes. It stacks on group pressure. It uses mirroring to build trust. It rewrites memory to create doubt. It creates addiction through intermittent rewards. And finally, it uses the ultimate shortcut, authority, to control the entire system. This has been a look at the hidden architecture of influence. We've seen how these patterns are not terrifying, unknown forces. They are simply mechanisms. They are parts of our shared human psychology. The desire to fit in, the need to be consistent, the fear of loss, the trust in our own memory, and the power of a gift. These are not flaws in our design. They are the very things that allow us to build societies, to create trust, and to form bonds. They are the tools for cooperation. But like any tool, it's all in how they are used. The purpose of this observation was not to make us paranoid. It was not to make us see manipulation in every kind gesture. The true purpose is simply awareness. By observing them, by simply being aware of them, we are no longer unconsciously guided by them. The unseen architecture becomes seen, and in that simple act of noticing, in that quiet awareness, the mechanisms lose their hidden power. They are no longer invisible currents, but simply fascinating, predictable parts of the human machine. You have been here for this entire observation, and I thank you for your focus